This is Note-Taking Guide 4.4. We're graphing equations in slope y-intercept form. So just a reminder what slope y-intercept form is. It's in the form y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope and b is your y-intercept. The y-intercept tells you where your graph crosses the y-axis at, and it is our starting point on our graph. The slope tells us the rise over the run. So just remind yourself that the slope is rise over run, and rise over run is you always have to run to the right. On the rise you can go up or you can go down, but when you're running you have to run to the right. Alright, so let's just look at some equations here and see if we some graphs here and see if we can write the equation. We know we need it in the form y equals mx plus b. Again, our b value tells us where our graph touches the y-axis. It touches the y-axis at 1 is our y-intercept, so then we just have to find our slope. The slope is the number that goes in front of the x. In order to count your slope, you're going to find one spot on your graph that goes through an exact ordered pair, meaning the corner of the graph paper here. And then find another one, and you're just going to count your rise over your run. So we rose 2 here, and we ran 2 to the right here, so our slope would be 2 over 2. But 2 over 2 reduces to 1, so my slope is going to be 1. Y equals 1x plus 1 would be the equation of this line. I don't have to show that 1 out front, though, so I can just have x plus 1. This next graph, we're still writing the equation in the form y equals mx plus b. We're going to go look at where our graph crosses the y-axis first, which is at 3. So that's my y-intercept. Then I'm going to go find my slope to put that number in front of my x value. Now slope again is rise over run. Run always has to be to the right. So how far did we go from here to there on our next point? Well, we went down 2 and right 3. So my slope has to be a negative 2 over 3 for my rise over my run. Okay, this says identify the slope and the y-intercept. So again, the slope is the number that's attached to the x. Okay, the number attached to the x is 3 because that's the m value in my equation, the mx plus b. And then my y-intercept, that comes from the number add or subtracted back behind, and so that number is negative 1. This next one right here, if we're looking for slope or y-intercept, we're kind of just going to ignore for a minute that it's a greater than or equal to sign. And we need to get it into the form y equals mx plus b. So I need to move the y to the other side, or the x to the other side with the y and the number 14. Okay, I'm sorry I got interrupted there for just a minute. So what we're doing is we're getting it in y equals mx plus b form. So I need my x on one side and I need my number on the one side too. So I'm going to get y by itself by subtracting 14 over to the other side. I'm going to keep that inequality sign the same direction, and I'm just going to do 2x minus 14. So my slope is the number in front of the x, and my slope would be 2. You could write that as 2, or you could write it as 2 over 1, because the number underneath there would be 1. And then your y-intercept is the number that's added or subtracted back behind, so a minus 14. Okay, we're going to take this and we're going to graph it now. So in that same form, this back number is our y-intercept. It tells me where my graph crosses the y-axis at, so it crosses at 4. Then I'm going to follow my slope. My slope is a negative 2, and then because there's not a number underneath it, we're going to use a number 1. So down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1 from that point on the y-axis. Okay, just a reminder, sometimes we have solid lines, sometimes we have dotted lines. How do we tell? Well, solid lines come from equal to signs. So if we have equal to, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to, I said those and wrote those different at that time. This is less than, this is greater than. But if the equal to sign is underneath it, then you have a solid line. If you have a dotted line, it's because you only had a greater than or a less than sign. Greater than being this one, less than being that one. All right, so this last problem right here is not ready to graph the way that it is. I need to get it y by itself on one side. So I'm going to subtract the 2x over to the other side and just kind of ignore that inequality sign for just a minute. So I'm going to have a negative 8y on this side, rewrite my inequality sign, and then have 2x plus 6. I still need to get y by itself, so I'm going to divide by a negative 8 on everything, just like we do on an equation. So there is a rule that says if we divide by a negative number and we have an inequality, then we have to flip that inequality the other direction because we divided by a negative. So flip that inequality sign, and then negative 2 divided by a negative 8 is a positive 1/4, and 6 divided by a negative 8 is a negative 3/4. So this is a little bit funny in the fact that this number right here is not a whole number. It tells us that our graph crosses the y-axis at a negative 3/4. So I'm just going to kind of mark it right here, like kind of in between 0 and negative 1. Then from there I'm going to go up 1 and over 4 to draw my next point. And it will still be kind of in the middle of the two lines. Now I want to just draw this as a solid line, but I need to check to make sure I should have. Because the equal to sign is there, I do get to draw a solid line. And then because it says my y's are greater than or equal to the line, I actually would shade all of my y's that are bigger than the line. My y's get bigger above the line because they're smaller below the line, and so I'm just going to shade the whole area above the line.